Fiji is a paradise in the South Pacific. Unfortunately, the country has cult Grace Road, an iron fist, while entangling international authorities in a years-long game of cat and mouse. Business empire stretching across the island, warmly embraced by the local government. Far from over.
반드시 정계에 들어갈 거야. 지배하고 다스리고 누리고 정복할 거야.
Businesses to 54 in the period following the raids. There have been allegations of being fed improperly, being housed improperly, being overworked, what this would allow, and physical punishments to top everything off.
I realized my passport was gone, screaming for help.
This story is about religious fanaticism.
Actually, their whole purpose is abomination or the Armageddon, the end of days.
About a regime deeply entwined with them.
The church were able to bring people in the government up to date.
About freedom of press.
Our latest investigation story, or piece,
Permits given to your production company must be cancelled forthwith.
we're basically holding back the stories.
And about
What happens if you effectively kill this golden goose?
how did Grace Road amass so much reach, and why has no one stepped in to stop them? Well, we went there ourselves.
All right, it's the first day here.
This investigation Ali. He previously traveled to Ethiopia for us, where a new ocean is forming. It doesn't take long to convince him to go.
Go to the other side of the world to join a cult, I guess.
Now he's on a 48-hour trip from Vienna to Fiji.
I've ever been from home. Literally the exact opposite side of the world.
Fali will spend nearly the people about Grace Road, or at least trying to.
Grace Road? Nothing much about them.
I've heard it was like out of my business.
All I know is that they say they are a Christian-based restaurant, but from one of their cults or something like that.
I have had conversations with them. It's a confidential meeting, so I can't, for me to know that this is not a church.
There are nagging questions that only Grace Road can answer. And to get now, no, not very easy.
They haven't talked to us. They don't even know what we're doing. Now, if that's not a red flag, I don't know what is.
But let's go back to the beach to the ground in Nandi. It all starts here in Seoul, South Korea, between auto repair shops in the morning in 2008. The woman in the blazer up front is called Shin Ok-jo. She spent 3 years in Philadelphia and in South Korea. She claims she was trained by the Presbyterian Church, back then one of the largest Christian. But the Presbyterian Church insists Shin's story is false. Not that it matters much. By now Shin has her own, and she has some pretty specific ideas about humanity's future. Jesus, she says, will soon, but first the world must endure a doomsday. In South Korea, cults have been flourishing for decades. In the early 2000s, South Koreans were said to belong to 100 different groups. Today, more than 300 cults are active in the country. National trauma of colonialism and war. Back then, cults offered social contacts, comfort and salvation, a path to material and spiritual prosperity. Many of these cults are controversial. Some are outright and wins over hundreds of followers with her rhetoric. In her mind, there is only one way to escape the coming doom. She and her followers can survive global famine and nuclear fallout.
Their plan was to charge farms and to assist in helping feed the world during a time of hardship. That was the message from her pulpit.
Dan McGarry is an editor for the Pacific region with the OCCRP. The organizer, he's been investigating Grace Road for years. Around 2014, Shin's son, Daniel Kim, takes up the quest to a place with no winter and a steady warmth between 20 and 30 degrees Celsius. In his pursuit, he allegedly traveled to sea. His search leads him to Fiji. An archipelago of 332 islands and over 5 across an ocean expands almost twice the size of the Gulf of Mexico. Only 100 are inhabited. Fewer than on the main island, Viti-Levu. That's also where the capital Suva is located. Until 1970, so English became the official language. And because India was also under British rule, many Indians ended up in Fiji. People here also speak Fijian Hindi and traditional Fijian I2K.
Like he said, but it's important for us to see it and believe it. We can't be depending on the stories we...
Kim wrapped up his assessment of whether Fiji could be the promised land. Now he's about to leave for his next destination. He gets stuck in Fiji and takes it as a sign from God. His quest, he believes, reached its conclusion. Says they have clear evidence. This is the land God has prepared. And so Prophet Kim's mother and hundreds of church members believe no prolonged search mission or higher power was involved.
There used to be a direct flight from Seoul to Nandi. That's it.
Reverend Bhagwan James is the General Secretary of the Pacific Conference of Churches, an organization to bring together. He is also a minister of Fiji's Methodist Church.
I can tell you that I have been aware of the group for about 11 years now. I was first approached by Korean groups doing missionary work to raise their concerns about some of the new sects that were coming in.
Grace Road. Back home in South Korea, the Presbyterian Church launched an investigation into Shin Ok-jo, where she was. To heal a schizophrenic man, she ordered her followers to tie him with duct tape. The men's later had to be amputated. In September 2014, the Presbyterian Church declared Shin a heretic, leading the charge against her, a grave insult, one that would not go unanswered. Later, Mass is about to begin at the Day Rim Methodist Church in Seoul. In front of the church, suddenly, some of them storm inside. They violently attacked a church official, Deacon, and drag him down the stairs. They probably consider him to be a demon. At least, that's what Shin reportedly told them. Attack. But afterwards, she was on the radar of both the South Korean media and police. All good.
Place that is supposed to save a group of people from famine and nuclear fallout from 8,000 kilometers away from here, from South Korea. I wonder also, all the people here in this, how aware are they of this sect and the stories around them? How troubled is this paradise? It's like a 3-4 hour drive from Nadi to Suva, and all along this road businesses, supermarkets, gas stations, restaurants, and so on.
One should ask the question is, why did they come in as a business first rather than as a church? Right? So they had an approach to come in. So they'll come in as a business. They set up as a foreign investor, and then they moved from
2014, Grace Road established their presence in Fiji with this farm, 3.8 hectares of land, vegetables. So far, so good. Given the whole incoming global famine thing, it probably feed the world during a time of hardship and so on. But then something strange started to happen. The cults In 2015, they opened their restaurant, Grace Road Kitchen, followed by Noodle Story, Sunny Pizza, Snowy House, and Patisserie Pacifica. Grace Road also launched their own construction company, designing clients and even for the government. As befits true Christians, after Cyclone Winston in 2016, they were busy refurbishing and extending Prime Minister Bainimarama's house at a cost to Fijian taxpayers of. In the same year, the group won a business award presented by Bainimarama. By this point, more than 100, but the majority of employees are Korean, at least 300, and they're far from done. Hardware stores, a dental clinic, shoe stores, and beauty salons. At the center of it all are Daniel Kim and his mother cutting ribbons, growing the empire. And for a long time, no one knew what's really going on behind the scenes. We're trying to uncover what's really happening here. During his long flight to Fiji, Vali put his time to good and logical thinking skills. With the help of our sponsor, Brilliant. Brilliant is a hands-on learning platform, interactive lessons from math and AI to programming. Here, for example, you have to make the green duck disappear, which is up to 6 times more effective than traditional lectures. We also really enjoy training our logical thinking this way. Don't puzzles get more and more challenging over time? All courses were crafted by teachers, researchers, and experts from renowned institutions, as well as on your PC or laptop. Scan this QR code or go to brilliant.org/fern and start our link. You'll get 20% off their annual subscription, giving you access to everything the platform has to offer.
Heading to Nabu right now, which is the place where it all started. The headquarters of This is the road, the Grace Road.
During his travels, Vali is supported by Lonnie. Behind the scenes, Jim and Lada handle logistics and access, and Mary does the driving. Even before Vali Grace Road, sending emails and calling dozens of numbers.
So it was either not working, fax line, someone with this high beeping sound when you call the number. 2 of them actually managed to get through on one of the numbers that I called, and he said, email the admin address. So once from them, I've tried that number again, nobody's answered.
By now, it seems Lonnie's not.
As we're approaching Grace Road's headquarters now, what's our plan?
And speak to them and explain to them what we're trying to do in person, and if we can really schedule the time to sit down with them on camera.
Yeah.
Lonnie and Jim enter the building. After a while, they return.
Hello, we want to know, what did they tell you?
We went up to the office.
They were nervous when we want to speak to somebody. You could sort of feel the shift in the vibe.
Contact or some address or...
No.
I asked for a number. They said no.
They said no, just admin.
Vali can't film inside Grace Road's headquarters or speak with officials, but he can at least visit the cult's restaurants.
I love the menu that they prepare.
The pizzas are good.
I mean, they have good taste, especially for the pizza.
Nice to eat.
I like their food and coffee.
Okay, we're at Olive Tree, and I'm having some rice cakes. And I have to say, it's really, really good. We are Pacifica and fierce chicken. Having a coffee, so the coffee's good, I can tell you that.
So let's take a look. Great food, modern interior, no signs of an abusive doomsday cult. Breed, the brightest, cleanest, kindest, and most honest eternal group that sees and delivers the eternal love of God. The center of the world, Fiji, the only island with yesterday and today. And look at these, the ocean. Vali takes one.
Justification of threshing from prison. About Grace Road. Everyone has a reaction whenever I mention the name, and I can't really tell their businesses, restaurants, shops. But whenever I ask a little bit more critical questions now, people don't want to comment, people don't know, or they've heard some rumors, but speak openly, or they can't speak openly, or they just want to focus on the positive aspects. And we have related to some kind of leftover fear of the previous government, which was essentially a drama.
In the Bainimarama era, things were quite different.
This is Fred Wesley Times. He was already in office when Grace Road set foot in Fiji. Back then, what looked like paradise wasn't.
Say there's a lot of misunderstanding by the international community of what transpired here, and Australia and New Zealand being stamped their mark as big brothers. But why do you think they're doing it?
Because they don't like to see a military... Frank Bainimarama came to power in a military coup. He was a former commodore of the Fijian Navy. He is reputed to have inflicted great many acts of violence on individuals who were...
I want to understand the situation here. Is it because I'm a military man?
Yes, of course, you've seized power. A man in a nice shirt, but you're still a military man. And
well, I keep telling everyone, a radical change needs to be changed. Cannot be brought in by some weak organization.
Under Bainimarama, the opposition in parliament muzzled. Freedoms of expression, peaceful assembly, and association were restricted. Violence was commonplace and tightly controlled by the regime.
I had a senior journalist who was arrested 5 times, thrown into a cell 3 times. I've had people who were journalists by ministers, and an editor would get a $25,000 fine.
It wasn't only journalists that were suffering this kind of repression. The laws were changed, the constitution was changed, government was strengthened in terms of repressing negative or critical voices. It was for anybody who wasn't completely aligned with the Bainimarama agenda.
Coup, Bainimarama held on thanks to a system that mixed regular democratic elections with periods of repression, 2014 and 2018. But in 2022, Fiji's economy is faltering. The pandemic battered Bainimarama lost his absolute majority, and a coalition of other parties took over parliament. Vali still senses the echo of these dark days of oppression, especially when he talks to people off camera.
Jim and Lani often refer to the Bainimarama regime, 16 years of oppression, between Prime Minister Bainimarama and Grace Road. During his tenure, the Fiji Development Bank in the group. On the other hand, he used Grace Road for his own purposes. From a Fijian perspective than the cult itself, it's politically charged.
The OCCRP investigated these troubling topics. A former government spokesman told them the cult was treated like a protected species. Laws restricting free speech did. OCCRP revealed that Fijian police had spoken with witnesses who described beatings and other, but without any serious consequences for them.
And so I think the kind of creation that we see in Grace Road would have resonated very much with Frank Ayum, the 2 main members of the Fijian government at the time.
Day in Fiji, and it starts with a surprise. We've actually received an answer from Grace Road, but not.
Here's a serious update. Yesterday, Lani got a call from the film commission in Fiji.
Okay, wait. Are you in the office? Okay, I'll come across to you now.
Of Fiji, who gave us the permit to film, that the lawyers of Grace Road called Film Fiji to revoke office.
So the lawyers have contacted them about the fact that we've been going to different stuff. They're emailing them now about revoking the permit altogether, the filming permit altogether.
Filming. Lani explained to the commission that we didn't do anything illegal at Grace Road, but now she still has to deal.
Typing up emails now. Again.
Maybe they can actually get us in touch with Grace Road themselves.
Exactly. Yeah. So this all comes to a fruitful outcome for everybody.
Damn. This is to be aware of us. Exciting.
The lawyers from Grace Road state that
our client on which a permit was given to your production company. It is imperative that the permits given to your production company, we will leave that decision to Film Fiji. They also wrote that we need permission from Grace Road to film, and that they, quote, expressly declines your request to film or shoot any short film or form of any motion picture on or about it. They're trying to shut us down. If that's not a red.
Anyway, we get to keep our filming permit, but from Grace Road's perspective, it probably after all, it would be a shame if more people learned about the horrendous crimes they allegedly committed. It's the summer of 2018, 4 years after Grace Road's arrival in Fiji. Their many business regime is still in power. Shin is on a 15-hour trip back to South Korea. When she and other church leaders the group is suddenly surrounded by police officers. Shin Okjo and 3 of her companions are arrested on the spot.
Well-developed allegations of significant physical violence. They call the threshing floor. And that means, they say that people's sins are expiated through beating, upsetting violence.
We've seen the footage of the threshing floor. We will not show it here.
That kind of activity had been going on for quite some time. Korean authorities were aware of it. They felt they had sufficient evidence.
And these violent practices are said to have made their way to Fiji.
It appears to be of maintaining discipline within the church membership itself, and that discipline is extreme to come across.
That's what Mara Ma told us as well. She worked for Grace Road's farms and in their True Mark supermarkets.
I'll go to the hospital.
We were not able to independently verify Mara Ma's statements. However, her account of workers, including those of this young woman, whom Vali happened to meet by chance on the roadside.
You think I heard that they'll get the hiding and all it from the leaders, and when the fell.
We were not able to independently verify her statements either, but she claims that she worked at Grace Farm. Despite the harsh conditions for all employees, one thing stands out. Grace Road seems to operate like a two-tier of the local Fijians, who've had some bad experiences, and on the other, the Koreans, who have suffered far worse.
All accounts were treated well, but at the end of the day, they went home. Mostly Korean, they were kept in barracks. There have been a number of allegations. They extend to the unwilling detention of people taking their passports effectively and refusing them to leave the church. There have been allegations of being fed improperly, being housed improperly, being over to normal labor practices would allow, physical punishments to top everything off.
Also experienced in 2014 by then 21-year-old Siyun Lee. After undergoing cancer surgery, her mother Gigi for recovery. Siyun interrupted her studies and accompanied her for 2 weeks. Shin's sermons were bizarre.
A lot of shouting. She would verbally abuse a lot of people, call them names, awful names.
What was wrong?
Actually started packing the day before. And when I went to him, it was gone. I realized my passport was gone. I was panicking a lot.
Dressed only in pajamas and flip-flops, she made her escape. Although others tried to block her path, she managed to. They helped her obtain an emergency passport at the South Korean embassy. All the while, Grace Road members tried to convince her to stay. But she left her mother behind in Fiji and managed to return to South Korea. Grace Road seems to rule over its members with an iron fist. The cult runs an enormous business empire. So they may have wondered, why not bring the promised land under its control entirely?
반드시 전기에 들어갔거든. 그들은 이게 안 들어가니까, 안 돌아가니까. 그럼 지배하고 다스리고 누리고 정복할 거야.
While Shin settles into a prison cell, South Korean authorities are continuing their crackdown on Grace Road. Shortly after capturing again, 17 officers are sent on a secret mission to Fiji. On the ground, they meet with the local police. Mission begins.
They arrived at the main multi-acre farm, that's the headquarters of the church, of a sweep to gather up people and evidence before anybody had a chance to react.
In the following days, including Shin's son, Daniel Kim, the secret mission is looking like a huge success. But then...
What we do know is that the courts intervened quite quickly. Shortly after that intervention, we're going to take over this investigation. And so the Korean police detachment, who with a number of people in their custody, ended up going back empty-handed. An Interpol at around that time for Daniel Kim and presumably for others.
Perhaps investigations continue behind the scenes, but for years, nothing comes of them. On with business as usual. Grace Road launches new ventures and keeps on growing.
They expand businesses to 54 in the period following the raids. Grace Road became Fiji at the time.
And they keep diversifying. From dental clinics to gas stations, the stations are they are still operating today. We asked ExxonMobil whether they were aware of the events surrounding Grace Road cooperation. They chose to expand it. They did not respond. In July 2019 in South Korea, she was sentenced to 6 years in prison for fraud, holding her followers captive in Fiji and subjecting them to violence.
Leader of the church. He's got, the money of his contributors, of his church members, a great deal of leverage in terms of development loans and various other things.
But not everyone in Fiji. At the end of 2019, opposition leader Siddhaveni Rabuka demands an immediate investigation.
Now the Korean court is committed in Fiji, our authorities cannot turn a blind eye to the allegation of forced labor, torture, assault, swiftly to protect the human rights of the members of Grace Road and prosecute those who have broken our laws.
Despite action, Bana Marama reportedly continues to let the cult operate undisturbed for years. But by 2022, after 16 years of oppressive rule, Bana Marama is finally voted out. Siddhaveni Rabuka becomes a trouble for Grace Road. 2023, September 7th. The newly elected 6 members of the cult are declared prohibited immigrants after the South Korean government nullified their passports. 2 more are released after a court injunction. The last 2, including Daniel Kim, are said to be on the run. This appears on Facebook.
You're lucky. Everyone we know hurt. If the hurt, why does so many of the customers supporting? So I want people that this is not a legal fee. This is illegally, and you're not happy about it.
But it's no use. Daniel Kim is put on immigration custody. For years, Grace Road stayed silent in the massive solidarity campaign. The cult is facing existential risks. Its leader was convicted in South Korea, and the new government has launched extensive investigations. For now, their business keeps running, from agri-markets and gas stations. The question is, how long will it last? A concern that in government as well. Grace Road claims in a statement that it creates jobs for rural development and making it one of the country's biggest employers.
Well, look, let's be realistic. Grace Road is tourism has not rebounded to the levels that existed pre-COVID. Grace to the tourism industry. And so if you pull the plug, summarily on raiding a cross swath of the country's main island, that could have some pretty serious repercussion.
400 days after Kim's detention, half a year before Vali will travel to Fiji, have gathered in front of the appeals court in the capital, Suva. This is the moment they've all been waiting for. Daniel Kim. He is free.
This was a sort of the normal operation of the courts. This judicial review is in process.
The de facto leader of Grace Road is out on bail. No alleged practices behind closed doors.
I know there are a great many people who feel that there should be prosecutions. That isn't the public prosecutor in Fiji at this time.
Even the US government criticizes Fiji in its newly released report notes that no one from Grace Road has ever been prosecuted or convicted. Within the Fijian government, from the unmistakable demands of the past to a far more cautious approach, the government Grace Road is now reconsidering new investments in Fiji. They stress that they have always treated Grace Road with friendliness, new retail standards they brought to Fiji.
Currently, there is a great deal of concern about you effectively kill this golden goose, if you remove one of the substantial private sector time.
Now, on the ground, Vali wants to ask government representatives about these concerns. Grace Road keep dragging on. According to the OCCRP, Fijian officers have spoken to Key more than 5 years ago. What's taking so long? Interviews have been arranged, but a series of unfortunate, for example, key members of the government were stuck on another island, 6 to 8 hours away.
Now, next week they have a super intense week, right?
Luckily, Lani has already received commitments from individual ministers, but
now, more than 2 weeks later, this is her message. I spent Monday morning at Kamikami trying to lock interview times. Both these ministers have been advised not to make any public comments regarding Grace Road and files before them. Any public comments have a high chance of putting both them and their ministry in a
questions but never received a reply. We also reached out to the Grace Road group, but unsurprisingly, got no.
Lani talked about the colonial history of they could conquer it, but couldn't, and instead had to integrate. She has a similar hope with Fiji with bad intentions might somehow be changed for the better.
Right, to saying, oh, well, that's okay. Over there, we're still going, that kind of thinking. Oh, well, no, that's the chicken, that's not the church, that's not too nice. It's all connected. The offense is more important than our values and our ethics. And I think that's where we start to fail as people. And
came here to understand what is Grace Road really about. And to be honest, finding answers to these questions has been so much secrecy. People seem to be afraid of something whenever talking about Grace Road.
I think one of them is that Fijians have been living under a more or less oppressive regime of their human rights since 2006. Democratic government, as we understand it, is
Our latest investigation story, we had Grace Road lawyers send us a notice to holding back the story. But yes, we should piece that we hope to run over a couple of weeks, an in-depth investigation where we have spoken to ones from Grace Road and we have left.
As of the release of this video, the Fiji Times have not published their investigation.
So while many of my questions are still unanswered, there's at least one thing I can say for the people of Fiji, they will always stay in my heart. They're the nicest, most generous for a smile, even though it's not super easy to live here. Many Fijians struggle. It's also not a huge country, and that's exactly why outsiders coming in here as guests, they must act with real care, with responsibility, transparency, and of course, a lot of good things.
Without a doubt, they have a business model that's unique. With the economic development, economic growth in areas that didn't have this. That's a reality. But there's also a lot of negatives.
When so much good is wrapped in so much to speak about it at all, that's really a red flag to me. And that tells me, what better place than this to read you a little bit from Reverend Chur is written by Ok Chushin from prison and given out publicly in more of this to you. Threshing, an assault, moving to Fiji, a confinement. The threshing floor is the spirit of truth. Reverend Ok Chushin carried out the threshing floor to protect the children of God.
Does not sound like remorse. To us, this sounds like a justification for brutal violence. Expand their empire beyond Fiji.
The president of Nauru, which is a tiny island nation of about 20, extended an invitation to Daniel Kim, asking him to come and work his mini island to see, what he can do to help the economy of Nauru.
With no winter, fertile soil is limited though. But who's to say if any of this is really in preparation or just about money and power?